Hello everyone, Clack of the Geek here, and welcome to a Doctor Who episode review. I haven't done one of these in a while actually, but I do enjoy doing these from time to time. Anyway, today we're going to be reviewing the 7th Doctor story, Battlefield, from his final season, and the final season of the classic series, season 26. And I was rewatching this story recently, and I was actually showing it to my mum, who hadn't seen any of Classic Who really. I decided to show this one, but yeah, I really enjoyed this one a hell of a lot more than I thought I would. And I've seen this one before, but I was rewatching it, and it was a lot better than I remembered it. This story is often forgot about, and it's often considered the weakest of season 26, mainly because it's a bit lighter in tone compared to Ghostlight, The Curse of Fenric, and Survival, which are a lot darker and more intense. Whereas this, you've got knights, knights from the future, coming to Earth. It's a bit more light-hearted, and also this story has, the unfortunate honour of being the lowest viewed Doctor Who story ever. Part 1 received the worst viewing figure for Doctor Who in its history, with an abysmal 3.1 million viewers. And yet, I want to reevaluate this classic, and I think it's a very underrated story, and I want to go into why. So as we do with the reviews, let's start off with the Doctor. So here we've got Sylvester McCoy as the 7th Doctor, and I love McCoy. He's my favourite of the 1980s Doctors, and I've always loved his Doctor. I just think he's brilliant. Now with McCoy's Doctor, you had season 24, his first season, where he was very juvenile and silly. Then season 25 came along, and with stories like Remembrance of the Daleks, he was getting a bit darker. The darker side of him was starting to show. And then with season 26, it's pretty much just let loose. Now there is elements of that sort of more silly side to him. Not too goofy, but he's very witty and, snappy in this story. He's very good. But he can actually be quite dark in places. There's the scene where he's got the sword at Mordred's throat. He's like sort of ordering him about, and then obviously at the end, there's the speech that he does about, nuclear weapons and anti-war. For me, that's like a precursor to the 12th Doctor Zygon speech. And it's on a par with that. It's a fantastic speech that not many people talk about. I don't know. But it's a brilliant speech. And McCoy is just on his game in this one. And then you also have the thing of, could the Doctor be Merlin in? Because you have characters kind of from the Merlin franchise and myths and legends. Because the Doctor is like the Merlin kind of character, and then you've got Gene Marsh's character Morgaine, who's sort of like the Morgana kind of character, and it's kind of something that Stephen Moffat would do. It's like the mystery of the Doctor, and it's a nice little fun detail, I think. Then obviously we move to companions. We have Ace, played by Sophie Aldred. If you didn't know, my favourite Doctor Who companion, and this isn't necessarily her best episode, and in season 26. She got some really good character development, Ghostlight, Curse of Fenric, Survival. Her character was so rich and just, oh man, it was brilliant. But this is not, it didn't really start here. It starts in Ghostlight, kind of. But her character is still great. She gets to some really cool action scenes. She's got some really snappy, witty dialogue. And she's got Shou Young to bounce off of, who's her friend. And considering that Ace is meant to be bisexual as well, that kind of arc is kind of started here, I suppose. And she's just brilliant. And also the fact that she turns out to be the Lady of the Lake, because she pulls the sword out of the stone and she emerges from the lake where the spaceship is. That's a really nice little Merlin tie-in. And we also in the story have Nicholas Courtney as Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart, returning for a final time in Doctor Who. Yeah, because other than, Big Finish or the spin-offs, this is the last time he ever appeared in Doctor Who. And he went out, quite literally, with a bang. I think we can class the Brigadier as a companion because, of course you class him as a companion. He's one of the best characters in Doctor Who. And, oh my god, I love Nick Courtney's clearly enjoying himself, being back in the role. As a one-off return, there's like a last hurrah. And, I like how they, it's like catching up with the character years after, because he's retired, he's got a nice little house, and but he's called back into action one final time, and he goes out guns and blazes. He's shooting the monster, and I just do the best I can. That was his line, to the destroyer, which we'll get onto in a bit. But I love the Brigadier in this story, and it's just nice to have him here. But also the rest of the side cast are excellent. You've got Jean Marsh as the villain, playing Morgaine, and Jean Marsh has actually been in Doctor Who before as a one-off companion, Sarah Kingdom, in the Daleks' Master Plan, which also, funny enough, had Nicholas Courtney in it, so the more you know. She's kind of like the Morgana character from like the Merlin stories, and I think she's brilliant. She's a great villain. She got a great presence, quite intimidating, and her and McCoy bounce off each other quite well. And, you know, when she's with the rest of the cast, whether it's with Nick Courtney or just anybody else, who bounce off the rest of the cast really well. Obviously, with Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart returning, you've got Unit coming back for this story, and you've got a new Brigadier played by Angela Bruce, who, funny enough, was also in a really good episode of Red Dwarf playing a female version of Lister, which I just found really funny. But yeah, she's really good. It's such a shame that we didn't get to see more of this version of the Brigadier, because I think it's a different take to what Nick Courtney did, but it doesn't remotely feel in any way insulting. It's very much natural progression, and it's just, you know, handing down the baton in a sense, and I think she's brilliant. As I mentioned earlier, Ace's friend Shou Young is quite a cool little side character that Ace can bounce off really well with, and Anselin and Mordred, you know, some of the knights, their rivalry is really cool, and they form a bit of an ironic double act. They're a really good duo. As I said, Unit is in this story, and you've got all the knights from the future. It's really cool, and that means there is a hell of a lot of action in this story, and I think it's done so well. It's really exciting. It doesn't look cheap or tacky or dated. It looks really good, especially for the time, and I just think it feels like a lot of money went into this, even though the budget at this time, you know, the budget was getting slashed left, right and centre, and this looks, it feels like a proper Pertwee story, you know, big budget, and it's just brilliant stuff. And speaking of things that look really good, the Destroyer, this looks incredible for 1989, and honestly, it wouldn't look out of place in the first few series of Modern Who, like the Eccleston and early Tennant eras. I genuinely think this looks that good. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant design, and he's very intimidating. But the only problem is that he doesn't get to do much. He doesn't get to do an awful lot, and that is a bit of a disappointment. But other than that, I think he's a great monster. Yeah, I think Battlefield is a really good looking story, whether it's the sets, the props, the costumes, the action. It's had great production values. However, there was a bit of trouble on production here. There was a real scare on production. So in the spaceship sort of set with the, you know, the sword, there's a scene where Ace gets trapped in this little pod and it starts flooding. But on set, the tank with all the water actually cracked and was heading to some electrical wires, almost electrocuting Sophie Aldred. But Sylvester McCoy saw it, yelled out some expletives to prove he wasn't improvising in character, and they managed to save Sophie just in time. And, you know, it's stuff like that which is like, you've got to be damn careful on a TV set. You've got to be careful. And then we get to the end of the story with the Doctor's speech on nuclear war to Morgaine. This speech is spot on, and the Capaldi-Zygon speech in Series 9 very much echoes this, but people don't talk about this nearly as much, when they should, because this speech is phenomenal. McCoy's delivery is spot on, and you really see the season 26 dark McCoy in this scene. You see he's getting a bit more unhinged, you know, and he's saying, is this honour, is this war, tell me. He's getting it unhinged, and the anger and the assertiveness in his voice is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And in this scene, you even get a bit of sympathy for Morgaine, you know, and it's just an absolutely perfect scene. And, you know, the message of sort of like nuclear weapons, it's kind of mentioned drips and drabs in the story, you know, the whole reason Unit are there is because they're trying to sort out these nuclear weapons, but it's not necessarily at the forefront. But this speech is not subtle, but it is absolutely fantastic. So overall, I think this story is great, and honestly, if you're not too fussed on it, do give it a second chance, because I never used to be massively, I didn't dislike it, far from it, but I didn't love it as much. But I think this story is great, and I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I think it's just, McCoy is great, Ace is great, the Brigadier back is amazing, the cast are great, the production is great, the message on nuclear war is great. It's got a nice, fun, light-hearted story, but it's not silly. It is still serious, and yeah, quite serious at times. So that's why I give it an 8 out of 10. So that's in the review. Hope you enjoyed it. What do you think of Battlefield? What do you think of the McCoy era? What do you think of the 7th Doctor? What do you think of Season 26? Whatever, really. All that stuff. Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like, subscribe, and click the bell so you don't miss a thing. And this is Clack of the Geek, signing out. Goodbye, everyone.